Now, China isolated from the world, cities on lockdown, borders beginning to close, flights getting cancelled and travel warnings being issued. The reason? Well, an epidemic that President Xi Jinping is now calling a, quote, demon. Chinese officials are now saying that the virus can be spread through simple contact. So what does that mean? Well, if you just touch an infected person or an infected person touches a surface that you touch, you can get sick from that. That is a big change from what we used to think was the only way to spread this, being coughed or sneezed on. You can see how deadly the virus is by the number of people that it is killing. 24 people died on Monday alone, meaning 106 have now been killed in mainland China, with more than 4,500 confirmed cases. Now, this is a jump of nearly 65% in reported cases just over the course of one day.
My God!
Bear in mind, officials now do know what to look for, and there are more screenings taking place. We're following this story from the Chinese capital with David Culver in Beijing, and Blake Essig is in Hong Kong, a place that is right now with incredible scenes sealing itself off from the mainland. David, let me start with you. You are hearing of increased cases of, as I understand it, discrimination, segregation, and the ostracizing of people from Wuhan by other Chinese simply out of fear of their being contagious. Is there a sense of constant fear? Has that been driven or hidden by state media?
And part of the drive behind that, Becky, because this is going on and social media is certainly talking about it a good amount, is what you mentioned at the top there. The fact that according to Chinese health scientists, is that this contact would allow for the spread of the virus, and the concern that within the incubation period, which is anywhere between 1 and 14 days, somebody who has potentially been exposed could also be a carrier and could transmit within that 2 weeks' time. So that explains some of the fear that is fueling this really discrimination, segregation, ostracizing of some of these folks who are from Hubei province and from Wuhan in particular. And we're seeing on state media, they're coming up even with some editorials expressing concern over this and saying, look, during this time, there's a lot of fear. There's obviously a lot of concern behind this, but don't allow this to be the way you carry things out. Instead, let's all get together and work through this and fight through this as one. So they're trying to bring some healing in that, but it's creating a lot of difficulty, no question. Meantime, we know that folks are trying to leave the lockdown zone, and those evacuations are underway right now.
I'm sure.
Leaving the epicenter of the deadly coronavirus, American Priscilla Dickey and her 8-year-old daughter Hermione record their drive to safety.
I've never seen this road this empty in the middle of the day.
Arriving at a desolate Wuhan airport, headed back to the U.S.
I'm trying to get a ticket to the plane.
Yep, trying to get on the plane.
We video chatted with the pair the night before the flight. They were among 240 U.S. citizens, including diplomats and their families, granted special approval to get out of the lockdown zone.
I'm already all packed. My bag is over there.
Retreating from the front lines of this deadly outbreak as Chinese medical personnel move in with force. More than 4,000 deployed to Hubei province, setting up roadblocks for temperature screenings, checking for those who might be infected and potentially carrying the virus. At this community hospital, doctors seeing patient after patient.
I received 55 patients today, of whom nearly 20 had fever. Of those 20 patients, 2 are suspicious cases of a new type of viral pneumonia and have been transferred for treatment.
Amid the crisis, acts of kindness. With public transportation shut down, local Chinese offering to drive those otherwise stranded.
We encourage each other and work together. I hope the epidemic can go away and we can get the normal life back.
Chinese state media reports rapid construction underway for not one but 2 new hospitals. They will reportedly hold more than 2,000 infected patients, and both are slated to open within 2 weeks' time.
My wife is a medical worker, and I'm a builder at the hospital. Our goal right now is to build this hospital better, so that all medical staff, like my wife, can work worry-free and feel more secure.
And as a sign of unity, on Monday evening, social media captured residents joining voices, singing China's national anthem from their open windows and chanting, "Go Wuhan." Back inside a near-empty Wuhan airport terminal, the waiting game. Priscilla and her daughter posing for photos, about to board a long flight back to the U.S. to be followed by several days of quarantine. And they will likely be in that quarantine anywhere from 3 to 14 days, Becky. Also, Japan and South Korea officials are working with Beijing to likewise charter flights out. Interesting thing about those is they're going to be this exchange of goodwill, if you will. They're going to be bringing some supplies, much needed medical supplies, on those planes that eventually take their citizens out.
Yeah, fascinating. I'll come back to you in a moment. Blake, I want to bring you in at this point because we are hearing reports of Hong Kong closing its borders with China. Why? What details have you got?
What?
Well, Becky, Hong Kong at this point does seem to be shutting down in order to prevent the spread of the Wuhan coronavirus. And starting tomorrow, you've got government employees that have been asked to stay home. You've got sports centers, museums, and libraries that are all going to be closed. But one thing that isn't fully closed is, in fact,
Hong Kong?
A sea of people, shoulder to shoulder, hiding behind protective masks.
Jesus!
This is the scene from a key border crossing connecting mainland China and Hong Kong.
My God!
Restrictions are in place to block the entry of anybody from Hubei province, the epicenter of the deadly Wuhan coronavirus. And today, the city's leader addressed the media, announcing further measures including partial transport bans and the suspension of some services at border crossing stations.
Oh my God.
We will substantially reduce the flow of people between the two places.
Oh my
But
God.
several points of entry with the mainland remain open. We're here at the Lo Wu border crossing, one of several border crossings connecting Hong Kong and mainland China. And while several medical officials and legislators are calling for the border to be closed completely, as you can see, people from the mainland continue to stream in on the heels of the Lunar New Year. And that's a problem for some people, like Hong Kong lawmaker Michael Tian.
That they have to have a complete closure of the land and sea border.
He says drastic measures need to be taken to prevent a further spread before it's too late.
It's better to do it right now and then be prepared to lift the ban anytime if signs are improving in China, rather than not do anything and wait for hell to break loose and then impose the ban.
A sentiment shared by many Hong Kong residents and those visiting the city.
I think they should stop people from mainland China from entering Hong Kong because they keep bringing the virus here.
I think they should block the way that the Chinese people coming into the Hong Kong because nowadays the virus is very serious and we don't want all the virus from Wuhan to come into Hong Kong and affect our people.
Well, many people are calling for a complete border closure and some medical workers are even threatening to strike if it doesn't happen. When asked, Chief Executive Carrie Lam defends the current measures put in place. Chief Executive, you said that public safety is your primary concern, yet when you laid out your measures that you're taking, they sound only like half measures. Are you putting Hong Kongers' lives at risk by not closing the border?
There are a large number of Hong Kong residents who are now traveling in the mainland and overseas, and they need to come back. So I don't think it is very meaningful to talk about a complete closure of the border control points.
And that means Hong Kong's border with the mainland will remain partially open, forcing everyone, including the littlest of Hong Kongers, to protect themselves. And Becky, while Carrie Lam did dismiss the idea of closing the border completely, she did leave the door open, saying that this is a virus that is continuing to evolve.
Blake's in Hong Kong for you. Let's get you back to Beijing. Thank you, Blake. David, how are authorities there ensuring that people are getting the information bang up to date that they need to ensure that they help contain this virus?
Exactly.
That's been a major point of contention going back to just a week ago, really, when this was described as a preventable and controllable situation. And fast forward to just a few hours ago when President Xi Jinping himself was calling this a demon virus, one that he would not allow to hide. He went on to say that he promises continued transparency and government accountability going forward. Now, the problem with that, Becky, is that if you look at what's happened at the local level, for example, a lot of people are saying that's not been the case. In fact, they're considering at the local level within Hubei province, within the city of Wuhan, that was a mess of a situation that now the central government is having to clean up. And so you have this back and forth between the two. But it was also interesting because the mayor of Wuhan has said that he perhaps didn't do things in a timely fashion when it comes to releasing information, but he didn't accept total responsibility for that. In fact, he said that there are laws in place and procedures that essentially suggest he needed to go up to higher ranks to get approval before releasing that information, and he didn't get that. So it's somewhat pointing the finger at other folks right now, but ultimately it's not going to work well for those who are at the lower level. I mean, obviously this is a system that tends to focus more on the central party and the leadership at the top that will have the final say here.
Fascinating. David Corvus in Beijing for you. Blake's in Hong Kong to both of you. Thank you. Big story.
No wonder the stock market went crazy yesterday. The stock market absolutely plummeted and will probably do so again today. Whenever you have a microscopic virus that is a billionth of the size of a human being that can cause stock markets to crumble and to crash, tell me what's going on. A microscopic virus, a billionth of the size of a human being, has caused the stock market to tumble. This is unlike anything I have ever seen or could ever imagine. My God.
The UK says a controversial Chinese telecom giant can now play a role in the UK's next generation of internet, the Internet of Things, despite warnings from Washington. More on that after this.
Unreal. Absolutely unreal. Unreal.
If I was anywhere near you, I'd come down and get it. Look, the stock.
What's reportedly in the manuscript from anonymous sources. No one ever mentions that, but we haven't really seen what's in this book yet. In any event, yes, I think that would probably quell their appetite because they don't really want witnesses. They don't want to get into a tit for tat that, oh yes, we'll have John Bolton, but then we have to have Hunter Biden. That's not going to work well for Democrats. And all those senators running for president, they want to get out of there. So
they are so far
of this new network and also keeping them out of places
and lose weight with new
sort of a tug of war, not only politically, economically, diplomatically, but also when it came to national security. On one hand, they have this 5G promise that Boris Johnson has made to the country that by 2025, the entire country will be connected to 5G, which, as we all know, sort of the future of the connectivity of everything from your washing machine to your automated car. Now, on the other side, you have the U.S., the pressure from the U.S. to ban them, and also the national security implications as well. There's a big question about how this decision will affect the U.S.-UK relationship going forward with the trade deals, with the Five Eyes National Security Agreement. How will this all work out? Now, we have heard from Huawei that they say that they are very reassured by the UK's government confirmation that they can continue working with their customers to keep the 5G rollout on track. This evidence-based decision will result in a more advanced, more secure, and more cost-effective telecoms infrastructure that is fit for the future. It gives the UK access to world-leading technology and ensures a competitive market. Now, as you noted, Becky, Huawei has always said that the Chinese government has never asked them or pressured them to do anything and they would never agree to it. But there is no question that any Chinese company has to adhere to the Chinese Intelligence Act, which essentially means that they could at some point be pressured to do that. Now, Huawei is reassured by this decision, but the Trump administration is not. A senior administration official telling CNN that they are disappointed in the decision, and they say there is no safe option for untrusted vendors to control any part of a 5G network. They look forward to working with the UK on a way forward that results in the exclusion of untrusted vendor components from 5G networks. And the senior administration official also told CNN they will continue to pressure other countries to completely ban Huawei from their networks as well. Becky?
Hannes Gold in London for you. Hannes, thank you. Well, as the sports world pays tribute to one of the greatest athletes of all time, new details emerge about the helicopter crash that killed basketball legend Kobe Bryant. The latest on that investigation is coming up.
Impeachments should be evaluated in terms of offenses against established law. Violation of law necessary to sustain impeachment as an abuse of power.
Those claims are legally and historically false. Let me show you briefly the House's own rules, which state that regardless of any technical crimes, Congress may impeach an official for
mixed up
day-to-day life.
Making no generic available. And that would be bad for patients who need this drug. They're facing one supplier and a huge price tag.
So he's in prison for fraud, I think.
Yes, for fraud.
Now they want to go after him on another story, whatever it is connected with his drug price. Martin Shkreli is back, at least on the screen. But I think he's still in prison. Yes, he is. All right. Switch gears. Look at esports. The video game star, his name is Ninja. He just signed one gigantic contract. How much for?
We think estimated $20 to $30 million to play video games. Ninja, real name Tyler Blevins. He was on a contract to play on the Twitch platform. He switched to another platform called Mixer. He also has deals with Adidas, Red Bull. He is the Michael Jordan of his time, if you like, for esports, and it's a big get for the Mixer platform because they got this star who's now signed this multi-year contract. It's amazing.
Which is owned by Microsoft.
Pity I sold it.
Yeah, I know. Figured I would just rub that in.
Though. But you know, that is just such a revelation, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I
think most Americans would say there's pressure often brought into these foreign policy negotiations with a foreign country, particularly when hundred billions of dollars are at stake.
There seems to be momentum building on this side of the table, Matt, for some sort of a deal here. They have agreement.
Let's hash it out right now.
Yeah, we can do this. I don't know.
No, but like that point is exactly also what the editorial said in the Wall Street Journal, right? That this was an impeachable offense. There was some reckless.
I mean, it's a huge market.
This is a building that I can afford to live in.
Hour against Clinton. It was not an obscure legal doctrine. This is what
how to be an adult. Look, if you're old enough to vote, you should already know how to.
Undue influence on investigations, nor did Attorney General Barr state that the president's conversations with foreign leaders was improper. So that was a State Department spokeswoman trying to clear the air on that. Did that change anything?
You know, we haven't heard from Bolton. We've heard on a manuscript. I don't think it really changes anything because I'm not as concerned about, you know, what he's referring to on China and Erdogan. That is not really what the case is about. This is about, did the president do something against congressional approval by holding money back? Was it perfect? We know not. I think the way this is going, it feels more like a cover-up. I think actually if they said it wasn't a perfect call, I actually think that he will not be impeached, and we will say it wasn't a perfect call, but
But Matt, the president's legal team having gone so far down this road saying there was nothing wrong here, can they adjust strategy midstream?
Well, if anyone could, a lawyer could, certainly. But remember, that was the original line of messaging among Republicans in both the House and the Senate. But the word kind of came down, we can't go that far on it. And so I think it's tough to adjust midstream when that ship's pretty far.
But the fact that this story has now gone to this whole thing with Xi Jinping and Erdogan, it really shows what a political process this is, right? It's all about slamming the president because President Trump was trying to arrange a trade deal with Xi Jinping. So what happens in the negotiating of a trade deal over 2 years? Yeah,
play hockey.
Viewed 5 U.S. presidents, authored 7 books, and has an independent voice that resonates.
What happened to when we were united against a common enemy?
He's raw, unique, and one of America's most important talk show hosts. Watch Smirconish, Saturday on CNN.
I'm David Culver in Wuhan, China, and this is CNN.
Well, a week of Super Bowl events underway in the United States, and it began on Monday with a special tribute to a basketball legend gone far too soon. The crowd fell silent as an image of sports icon Kobe Bryant loomed over opening night in Miami, in Florida. Bryant was killed in a helicopter crash on Sunday, along with his 13-year-old daughter and 7 others. The Los Angeles Lakers have postponed tonight's game as the team in the city try to come to terms with the tragedy. Well, meanwhile, we are learning new details on the final moments before the aircraft carrying them went down. CNN's Omar Jimenez has more on that from California.
NTSB investigators are carefully combing through the wreckage, searching for reasons why the helicopter carrying Kobe Bryant and 8 others crashed.
It was a pretty devastating accident scene.
The pilot flying in foggy conditions, one factor federal authorities say could have contributed to the tragedy. The NTSB also digging into the flight's final moments as the pilot flew under special visual flight rules.
2 Echo X-ray, you're still too low level for flight following at this time.
Approximately 4 minutes later, the pilot advised they were climbing to avoid a cloud layer. When ATC asked what the pilot planned to do, there was no reply.
In a 2018 interview, the former NBA star and father of 4 explained why he often used the helicopter.
Traffic started getting really, really bad, right? And I was sitting in traffic and I wound up missing like a school play. I had to figure out a way where I could still train and focus on the craft, but still not compromise family time. And so that's when I looked into helicopters.
Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, were on their way for some of that family time Sunday, flying to her club basketball game.
Because of her passion, he began to love the game again like he always have.
Alyssa Altobelli, one of Gigi's teammates, was flying to the game with her parents, John and Carrie. Peyton Chester played for Bryant's Lady Mambas team too. She was with her mother, Sarah. Their family called them amazing and beautiful. Ara Zobayan's fellow pilot said he had a big personality. Christina Mauser was a teacher and basketball coach, but at home, she had another title, wife and mom.
She was witty, she was gritty, she had an amazing sense of humor.
In tributes, memorials, and even murals, fans keeping Bryant's spirit alive.
Kobe meant a lot to the city. He's my hero.
Current Lakers player LeBron James, who surpassed Bryant's scoring record just hours before his death, writing this emotional reflection. I'm heartbroken and devastated, my brother. I promise you I'll continue your legacy, man. And for Gigi, whose basketball light was just beginning to shine.
Please join us in a 24-second moment of silence.
Her beloved UConn women's basketball team leaving a seat vacant, draped with her jersey number, honoring a life, tragically, cut short.
CNN's Omar Jimenez there. There's been an outpouring of grief around the world. Superstar tennis player Novak Djokovic broke down in tears when speaking about the death of Bryant, his mentor and friend, after his Australian Open quarter-final win. Have a listen.
He was there for me. He was my mentor, my friend, and it's just heartbreaking to see and to hear what has happened to him and his daughter.
Yeah, and Djokovic, not the only sports star to open up about the tragic loss of Kobe Bryant. My colleague, World Sports' Amanda Davis, with us for more on that from London. Amanda.
Becky, we've had such a sense over the last 24 hours or so of just how many of the current crop of superstars from across the world of sport that Kobe inspired. He no doubt helped Djokovic today book his place in the Australian Open semi-final. Djokovic looking for an 8th crown in Melbourne. But the question now for him, will Roger Federer be lining up against him or not? That is coming up in World Sport in just a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Amanda. We are taking a short break. Back after this.
There are
his daughter.
Yeah, and Djokovic, not the only sports star to
team, leaving a seat vacant. With her jersey number, honoring a life, tragically cut short.
That'll do it for today on this particular segment. Thanks again to my viewers. Good luck to all of us. And shalom.